I spent the first 70 years of my life being good, not kind, good. There is a difference, and it took me most of a lifetime to learn it, and I am going to try to explain it to you in the next few minutes because I genuinely believe it will save some of you from wasting the years I wasted being something nobody actually needed me to be. Kind is real. Kind comes from inside, and it goes toward other people, and it costs you something you are willing to spend. Good is a performance. Good is what you do when you are afraid of what happens if you stop. Good is the yes you say when your whole body is saying no. Good is the smile you arrange on your face when you open the door to someone who has never once filled you up, only emptied you, and you let them in anyway because turning them away would make you the difficult one. I was good for 70 years. I was exhausted for 70 years. I want to tell you about a Tuesday afternoon in 1987. I was 56 years old. Donald was at work. Carol was grown and gone. And my sister-in-law Ruthanne called Donald's younger sister, a woman who had the particular gift of making you feel responsible for every difficulty in her life without ever directly asking you for anything. She called to tell me about a problem, not to solve it, just to deposit it. She did this regularly called, described the problem in full detail, accepted my sympathy, and then hung up lighter, while I sat with the weight of everything she had just handed me. That Tuesday she talked for 40 minutes. I stood in the kitchen with the phone pressed to my ear, and I watched a pot of soup go cold on the stove, and I said, and I know, and that must be so hard 40 or 50 times. And at the end she said, well, I feel better. Thank you, Evelyn. And she hung up. I stood in the kitchen for a moment after. Then I sat down at the table, this table in a different house, but this same kind of table, and I thought, she feels better, and I feel worse, and I made that happen. I chose that. Nobody forced me. I did not do anything about it that day. It took me another 15 years to do anything about it. But that was the Tuesday I first understood that being good was something I was doing to myself. The woman who finally said something was not a therapist or a book or a moment of divine clarity. It was my friend Lorraine. Lorraine was 73 when I met her at a church luncheon. She was the kind of woman people call difficult without realizing they meant she did not need their approval. She wore what she wanted and said what she thought and did not fill silences just to make other people comfortable. And half the women in that room did not know what to do with her. I thought she was the most interesting person I had met in years. We became friends. And one afternoon, she sat across from me in my living room and listened to me describe my week, a week in which I had done something I did not want to do for someone who did not thank me, and said something I did not mean to someone who did not deserve reassurance, and swallowed something real to keep the peace somewhere that peace was not possible anyway. And when I finished, Lorraine set down her teacup and said, Evelyn, who told you that was your job? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Who told you? She said again, not unkindly. that it was your job to manage everyone else's comfort at the expense of your own. I sat with that question for 3 years. I am not exaggerating. 3 years of sitting with it before I began slowly and perfectly to answer it. The first time I said no, without explaining myself, I was 71 years old. Ruthanne called, of course, it was Ruthanne asking me to host Christmas, not asking exactly, announcing. The way she always announced things she had decided while making them sound like they were still questions. In every previous year I had said yes, or I had said, well, let me check with Donald, which was not about checking with Donald, it was about having someone to hide behind. And then I said yes. That year I said, no, Ruthanne, we're not hosting this year. She said, why not? And I said, we just aren't. Not I'm sorry. We have plans. Not Donald isn't feeling well, maybe next year. Not a reason dressed up as an excuse, dressed up as an apology. Just, no, we just aren't. The silence on the other end of that phone was the loudest thing I had heard in years. She was cold to me for 2 months. I had expected that. What I had not expected was how little it cost me. I had spent decades imagining that her disapproval, her coldness, her feeling that I had failed her would be unbearable. It was not unbearable. It was a Tuesday. It was a quiet, slightly uncomfortable Tuesday that passed into a Wednesday and then a Thursday. And then Ruthanne called again because she always called again, and we were fine, and Christmas happened somewhere else. And the world did not end. I had wasted 30 years being afraid of a Tuesday. I want to tell you what happened to my friend Gloria because I think about it still. Gloria was warm in the way that costs you everything. She was the first person anyone called and the last person anyone thought to check on. She gave without inventory and helped without asking whether she could afford to. She was, by any measure people use, a good woman. She was also, by 75, completely hollowed out. I watched it happen gradually and then all at once. The way she moved slowed down, not from illness, from a kind of accumulated heaviness that had no medical name. She told me once, near the end of her life, that she could not remember the last time she had done something purely because she wanted to, not to help anyone, not to be needed, not to fulfill an obligation she had taken on somewhere in her 30s and never put down. She died at 79, and people said what people always say, she gave so much, she was always there for everyone, we don't know what we'll do without her. And I stood at her funeral and I thought, yes, and it killed her. The giving killed her. Not the giving itself, but the giving without ever once refilling what had been taken, and then never asking anyone to refill it, and then not believing she was allowed to. Goodness should not be a cause of death. But for Gloria and for too many women of my generation, it was exactly that. I am 93 years old, and I am going to tell you specifically what I stopped doing and when. I stopped explaining my no, not overnight, slowly, with practice, the way you practice anything. I started small no's without apology. The invitation I declined without a paragraph of reasons. The phone call I did not return same day because I did not have the energy, and I had decided my energy was not an unlimited resource to be distributed based on other people's timelines. I stopped being available to people who only contacted me when they needed something. I want to be precise about this because I am not talking about friends in genuine need. I have shown up for genuine need my entire life, and I would do it again tomorrow. I am talking about the particular kind of person who finds you when they are empty and leaves when they are full, and does not notice the exchange is only ever in one direction. I stopped answering those calls, not with explanation, just I stopped. I stopped performing emotions I did not feel. This one was the hardest. I had spent decades manufacturing enthusiasm for things that left me cold, and manufacturing calm for things that made me angry, and manufacturing gratitude for things I had not asked for and did not want. I stopped. If I am not interested, my face now simply says I am not interested. If something has hurt me, I say so plainly, once, without theater. If I disagree, I say I disagree. I have been called difficult. I have been called cold. I have been called by one of Carol's friends who did not know I could hear her. A lot to deal with. I have also, for the first time in my life, slept without the low hum of resentment that I did not even know was there until it stopped. The peace people are always looking for in the books and the retreats and the breathing exercises. I found it at 71 years old on a phone call with Ruthanne when I said no and meant it and did not explain myself. It was not dramatic. It was not a breakthrough. It was just quiet. Inside my own chest, a quiet I had not felt in decades. Like a room that had always had a television on in the corner, some background noise I had stopped noticing, and someone had finally turned it off. That quiet is available to you. It is not at the end of a long process of self-improvement. It is not the reward for becoming someone better. It is what is already there, underneath all the performing and the managing and the careful arranging of yourself to make other people comfortable. It is there right now. You only have to stop covering it up. I am not going to tell you it will be easy. The first no is the hardest thing. The first time you let a silence sit without rushing to fill it. The first time you walk away from something that is costing you everything and giving you nothing, and you do not feel guilty for walking away, that takes practice. That takes time, but you do not have as much time as you think you do. I know that sounds like something people say. I mean it structurally. The years go faster than anyone tells you. The version of yourself that could have had this peace 10 years ago is already gone. You cannot get her back. You can only start now, today, with whatever small no is already sitting in your throat, waiting. Say it. Don't explain it. See what happens to the quiet.